Who has their calculator ready for me just in case I need a little help? Okay. Wyatt's got one. Kian's got one. Okay, here we go. To find the measure of angle A. Whoa. Hey now. To find the measure of angle A, first thing I got to do is I got to identify some side lengths. Okay, I'm going to identify 65 as the hypotenuse. What would 7 be for angle A? Opposite, correct. So that's going to be the opposite side. And then that would make 4 the adjacents. Now, you can use, since you have all 3 sides, you can use whichever one of the 3 trig functions you want. So, katoa. I like TOA the best. That's my favorite. So, tangent of angle A equals opposite over adjacent. So if I want to find angle A, remember when we're finding an angle, we always use the inverse. We always use the inverse. Does somebody have a legit answer for me on that one? Anybody? Nobody has an answer. 60 what? 60 degrees? 60.25. Okay, you cool cats at home that are just chilling, watching the YouTube, just liking and subscribing to the Math Muscle channel. That's what you got too? All right, then should I trust all of you? Should I trust you? Yeah? Okay, so I'll trust you. So guess what? Once you find the measure of one of the angles, if it's a right triangle, you don't have to use inverse trig again. Right? Because the 3 angles, I know one of them's 90. I know one of them's 60.25. But I don't know the third measure. Correct. The 3 of them have to add up to 180. Well, if I take 180 minus 90, what do I know about the 2 of these? They have to add up to what? What do these 2 angles have to add up to? They have to add up to 90. So 90 minus 60.25, I believe, is going to be 29.75 degrees. What did I do? Okay, I might not have laid that out very well. Let's look at it again. We said this was 60.25, agreed? We said this is 90, and we wanted to know the measure of that. Well, how much is this worth? 90. So if the 3 of them are 180 and that's 90, the 2 of these have to be worth the other 90. So 90 minus 60.25 will give me B. All right, that'll always be true in right triangles. So I think what we said was 29.75 for the other angle measure. Excellent. Good. Okay, here we go. We got ourselves a triangle. We want to find x. That's our goal. So we have to include x in our ratio. We have to include it. Okay, so sine of 29. Okay, here's our angle 29. Here's our hypotenuse 25. Here's our opposite side 8. This is our adjacent side x. So if I have to include that adjacent side, that limits me to TOA and cosine, or ka. Sine is out because it doesn't include the adjacent side. I don't care which one you use. Just for variety, I'm going to use cosine. Do you see an A in that acronym right there? Did you say SA? Ah, pal. Let's keep rolling. So we're going to use cosine. How would I write a cosine expression? The cosine of the angle equals what? X over hypotenuse, which is 25. I cross multiply. So if I cross multiply, I get x times 1, which is x, and I get 25 times cosine 29, which is going to be a value. I'm assuming it'll be less than 25. Actually, it better be less than 25. Let's see if we get an answer. So good job. Nice. I like the answer. 21.86, whatever the units might be. Centimeters, meters, doesn't matter. It makes sense that it would be less than the hypotenuse. If you get a side length that's longer than the hypotenuse, you know you got problems. Okay, so go back and make a logical analysis of the problem and see, does it make sense? And if it does, then okay. If it doesn't, then reevaluate and see what happened. Okay, There we go. We're going to do some application problems. Before we get into that, I got to talk about the angle of depression and the angle of elevation. Okay, so typically, angle of depression. So angle of depression. If you were slightly depressed, would you hang your head or would you lift your head? No, I'm just saying. I'm saying if you're slightly struggling, would you typically hang your head or would you lift your head? Would your spirits be up or would they be down? They'd be down. Wow. Wow. Okay. So I would typically, my gaze wouldn't be, my chin wouldn't be uplifted. I would be feeling maybe a little down. So I'd be looking down toward the ground, right? So my gaze, instead of parallel to the ground, would be downward a little bit. That's an angle of depression. Okay? An angle of elevation would be typically here, an individual looking upward. Right? They're feeling their spirits are up. Their spirits are high. Okay? So they're looking upward. This is an angle of elevation. Right here. This is an angle of depression. Okay. On here. Okay, so in example number 1, the angle of elevation from a sailboat to the top of a 121-foot lighthouse is 16 degrees. Okay, so USS Tuthill down here. All right, if you were to sit on the boat and look upward toward the top of the lighthouse, that angle would be 16 degrees. That's the angle of elevation. Okay, not to be confused with this angle up here, which would be the angle of depression. You could use that, but it wouldn't be 16 degrees. What would it be?
Oh, it would be 180 minus 90 minus 16.
Good. So 90, right? If I take this 90 out of the equation, these two angles would have to add to 90. All right, so this would be, what, 74? So if you wanted to, you could use an angle of depression from the top of the lighthouse of 74 degrees. You don't have to. You could use the information given if you use it accurately. So I'm going to use that angle of elevation, 16 degrees. And I know that the lighthouse is 121 feet tall. To the nearest foot, how far is the sailboat from the shore? Okay, here's a mistake someone's going to make. That's not how far the sailboat is from the shore. I'm going to put that down here. And so now, as I consider my options, so Ka and Toa, okay, I don't really care about this value here. I'm not looking for that. That is what length? Hypotenuse, right? So I'm not looking for the hypotenuse. So that tells me right now that I'm not going to use sine or cosine. I'm going to use tangent. So when I set up a tangent function, what always goes inside the tangent? The what? The angle measure, the degree measure. 16 degrees equals opposite over adjacent. I'd like for you and a neighbor to figure out how far the sailboat is from the shoreline. Go. Swan. Okay, so as I cross multiply here, 121 times 1 is 121, and tan 16 times x is tan 16 times x. I mean, I know I just sound like I just repeated myself, but we're about to do a little bit of work, right? So if 10 equaled 2x, how would we find x? Divide by 2 on both sides. Same thing applies here. If I'm multiplying x times tan 16, to get x alone, I divide by tan 16. Okay, it's just a number. It's just some decimal value. So x will equal whatever 121 divided by tan 16 is. It comes out to be 421.98. If you gave 422 feet, either of those would be acceptable. Now, based on this scale, it doesn't look like it's that far away, right? It's not drawn to scale because, well, 16 degrees is a lot smaller than that. So this is not a well-sketched problem. We'll blame that on Mr. Breen. Everybody okay with that? Yeah. Yeah, you can blame them. That's okay. All right, let's move on and try another example. Oh, Mr. Breen, there you are. A salvage ship's sonar. Ooh, SS Lud is high tech. It's got a sonar on it. It locates wreckage at an angle of depression of 11 degrees. Okay, so first thing I want you guys to do is I want you to consider this. This is angle A. This is angle B. This is angle C. I want you to talk to a neighbor and decide which one is the angle of depression. Which one is the angle of depression? Take 30 seconds. So there's Mr. Breen. He's hanging off the side of the boat. He's looking parallel to the water right here, and he depresses his vision so that he is now able to see his car, even though he's sad. Tear. This is the angle of depression. This angle, it looks like, is 11 degrees. It was told to me in the problem. Yep. So now, would you agree that in general, the ocean floor or the lake floor would be parallel to the water, the level of the water, right? Okay, so wouldn't that make these two angles, this one right here, 11, and this one right here, wouldn't that make those alternate interior angles? Yeah, so guess what? The angle of elevation from the car to the boat, or the angle of depression from the boat to the car, are always equal. They're always equal. Okay, so now we have 11 degrees there. We know that the diver, Mr. Breen, puts on his pressure mask, jumps into the water, gains, 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 gains. Now he's on the ocean floor. How far did he travel to get to the bottom? 39 meters. And now he's got to walk along the ocean floor to find the wreckage so he can recover his Ace of Base cassette tapes as well as Led Zeppelin. Would you, with a neighbor, find out how far he has to walk along the ocean floor, lake floor, dirty, filthy body of waters floor? Go. Let's get this going here. Okay, so I'm not looking for the hypotenuse length yet again. Like if I were going to, for whatever reason, had some kind of obstruction and I wanted to extend some kind of rope or cable down to the car, maybe I'd need the hypotenuse, but I don't need it. So again, hypotenuse is out. Tells me sine and cosine are both out. So I'm going to use tangent yet again. And so the expression I would write is tangent of the angle 11 degrees equals opposite over adjacent. I cross multiply. So 39, this is very similar to the last problem, equals tangent 11 times x. I divide both sides by tangent 11. Don't get into the habit of thinking like, oh, everything has to be tangent. It doesn't have to be. Okay, in some cases it might be. And if I do that, what do we get, like 100 or something?
What?
Oh, 200.64? Okay, let's go with 200.6 and just agree that, so that'd be meters. So that is how we go about finding a side length using some kind of story problem. I think that's the end of the notes. Let's check here. Oh, I got something fun here, I guess. You don't have this? Okay. I'm going to pause for a moment. We'll come back to this in just a second. So we're going to call it a day. I don't know. I think this got misplaced here. Likewise, this. Yeah, these are old. Where is this coming from? This jumps right into the homework. So this is a homework problem that you can work on with a neighbor. I'm going to leave you alone. Reminder, tomorrow we're going to do the 2 quizzes. Okay, those will be tomorrow's objective. The first quiz will be 1 and 2, and the second quiz will be lesson 3. And we'll take R2s Thursday and R3s Friday. Like, subscribe.